Hey, everybody. Welcome to the College Football Insiders. I am Brandon Marcello, joined today by Richard Johnson, Shahan Jayaraja, and possibly we might have a Z-bomb with Matt Zenitz joining us here later in the show. It is week 9 of college football. It's still hot seat season. In fact, it seems like the hot seat season started with week 1. I mean, this is one of those years. It's going to be a record-breaking year. So, of course, we've been talking a lot about hot seat stuff, but we're also going to talk about in our pressure index today about just some really interesting games that could make or break some seasons and make or break some college football playoff runs here down the stretch. So we're going to get right into it because these Thursday shows are always jam-packed. We're going to start off with something outside the top 25, something outside the college football playoff race. I don't know if anybody knows this, but football is played outside of the confines of numbers next to names. There's always some interesting things going on. And we've got a situation brewing on the plains of Auburn. Hugh Freeze, the head coach there, who we have talked about several times here in the last couple of weeks, they're on a 4-game losing streak, all losses in the SEC. They go to Arkansas, which is on a 5-game losing streak and 0-3 in the SEC. Arkansas has already made their changes. Bobby Petrino's their interim coach for the time being. Auburn, though, very much needs to win, not only to make something out of this season after starting 3-0, but possibly keep their head coach, Hugh Freeze, employed for a 4th season going into 2026. We've talked on the show here in the last couple of weeks. Auburn Athletics Director John Cohen telling local media, AL.com, hey, I don't know if my car's going to start in the morning. I hope my car starts in the morning when discussing Hugh Freeze's future there on the plains. You had Hugh Freeze this week being asked, would it be nice to have a vote of confidence from your AD? And he's like, sure, that would be nice. Of course, I'm paraphrasing there. But it's ridiculous on the plains, and it could get even more ridiculous Saturday morning, mid-afternoon in Fayetteville, Arkansas, when the Tigers kick off against the Razorbacks. So many interesting storylines with this. But, Richard, you had a great point here on the rundown. I was looking at it. Bobby Petrino would like nothing else, of course, just to pick up a win to strengthen his resume to keep the head coaching job there at Arkansas, but for a lot of personal reasons as well.
I don't like to use vibes-based analysis. I like to try to be factual in nature when we come in this show and when we talk amongst ourselves. But, guys, has there ever been a more tailor-fit result than Auburn on the rocks with Hugh Freeze clearly distracted about whether he's going to get a vote of confidence or not, from a real vote of confidence or not, from his athletic director, going into Arkansas, where Bobby Petrino, because of Jetgate past and almost being the Auburn offensive coordinator way back when, would like nothing more.
No, almost being the Auburn head coach.
Excuse me. Yes, thank you. The Auburn head coach. Thank you. Way back when. And then also needing this, quite frankly, to stamp the fact that he's trying to get this job at a permanent basis, and winning over Auburn would be huge. To be honest with you, Arkansas's been really close the last couple weeks to getting a victory. And I don't know if you call this a signature victory for Bobby, but it would be pretty damn funny. And so, I think that at the very least, you've got a very motivated Bobby Petrino in this game against a Hugh Freeze that is all different types away in this game. And everything is shaping up for Arkansas to win this football game narrative-wise.
Yeah, Arkansas's defense has been terrible, but their offense leads the SEC. They score points. I mean, they scored 40 against Texas A&M in a game that they're within like shouting distance most of the game. They're like, hey, can't they wait up? We're behind 10. Let's get behind 3 again.
Auburn's best player, or at least their best lineman, isn't even going to play. Connor Lew, their center. He's not going to play in this game. Yeah,
so everything's like lining up here for just like, uh-oh. And here's the other thing, man. If you're a head coach anywhere, I don't care where you're at, and you're on the rocks, as RJ put it, don't lose to an interim head coach. You can't do it, especially in conference. And this isn't a good situation here for him, Shahan.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. And I actually wanted to swing a question back to you, which is, obviously you're right now in Northwest Arkansas. And like Richard alluded to, this team has been really, really close the last 2 weeks, ultimately haven't been able to win games. I mean, what's kind of the vibes over there with Petrino? I mean, obviously, it was going to be a tough ask for him to be able to handle this late season schedule. Is being close, and let's say that they win this game, is that enough to get people's attention?
It's interesting. I see some of the social media posts from radio shows around here, and Bobby Petrino's been doing more appearances on there. And you see a lot of the fans just talking like, man, this team, it's playing with heart. They're playing so hard.
That's how it starts.
That's how it starts. The fever, the rage makes old men. Okay, but the thing is, it's like the scores are pretty similar to what they were before the Notre Dame game, right? They're losing one possession games. They were scoring points, but they were still losing one possession games. But the difference is now is that there have been schematic changes defensively, and they have forced some 3 and outs. But then, like, after they do that and they get in the game, big play. So it's been a different way of losing close. So I guess there's some style points involved in that, because you see a little bit of, they're actually getting stops. That hadn't been happening earlier this season, but it's still more of the same, right? And I think deep down, the fans know that, but they're just clinging on to hope. And for Bobby Petrino to have any shot at this job, in my opinion, he's got to beat Auburn and he's got to beat Mississippi State and maybe steal one of the others as well, just to even have a argument to be like, can I interview here?
No, I agree. I think that 3 is the minimum that really you need to have a chance. But, to move back to Auburn, like, this is a situation that feels like it's progressively getting worse. Connor Lew, like you guys mentioned, one of the best centers in college football, played really well for Auburn this year. They're going to be without him, and they've already struggled to protect with him in the lineup. I think that Hugh Freeze's claim that they have 6 NFL linemen on this team, probably a little overstated at this point. And then I think the other thing too, you're starting to see, I think, Freeze feel the pressure a little bit to try out a different quarterback. We've heard that that Ashton Daniels, the Stanford transfer, has been taking a lot of first team reps as well. Now I feel like even if they do that, it feels a little too late. Like, I don't know why you've stuck with a quarterback who's struggling for as long as they have, which, by the way, is like a situation that echoes so much of the past few years, right? I mean, Hank Brown suddenly gets thrown in, and he gets pulled out, and then you have Walker White get thrown in and then pulled back out. Maybe we'll see some Deuce Knight. I don't even know. I just feel like, again, I feel like I'm harping on it every single week. If you want to make the comparison to, to your car, you're not sure if your car is going to start in the morning. Well, like Hugh Freeze what's like was it the Ford Pinto that everybody hated and was broken down all the time? Like, that's what you hired at a certain point. And when the car doesn't start, like, it's one thing to buy a brand new Mercedes and be shocked that it doesn't start.
Hey, Nick Saban owns Mercedes dealerships. How dare you say that about all?
and guess what? That car tends to start. We got something else obviously going on over here.
Well, I did, and I'm thinking about now, it's very hard to start an old car when it's cold outside. And
we got a freeze warning.
We got a freeze warning going on in Auburn right now. This is, I think it's must win for Hugh Freeze. We would echo that across the board here, guys.
Yeah, the funny thing is, I think it's must win for both of these guys, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But I cannot believe I'm saying this. I just trust Bobby Petrino to get the job done more than I trust Hugh Freeze in this spot.
I do too. Auburn's only averaging 13.5 points during this losing streak. Arkansas scores points against no matter who it is. That's not a good situation, but I will say the second straight weekend, bad weather in the forecast in Fayetteville. And so that'll play a factor, especially for an Arkansas offense that likes to throw the ball around so much. So that'll be fascinating to watch.
Yeah, if you've listened to the show the past few weeks, I mean, yeah, obviously it's a must-win game. I kind of think we're just done with this. I think this is over.
Yeah, it's trending that way, and we'll see. I mean, every Sunday we're always on watch, and I think we'll be on freeze watch come Sunday. Okay, speaking of watching things, I need some proof of life from Luke Fickell in Wisconsin. Show me something. You've been shut out in back-to-back games, both at home, and now, hey, let's fix things real quick. I got a vote of confidence for my AD, Chris McIntosh, who I'm close with, former Wisconsin player, understands everything. Let's give this guy some time. Let's invest in this program and go to Oregon and try to beat the Ducks before a bye week. And we know that bye weeks can be the greatest thing ever for a coach wanting to rest up a team that's contending, or it's the worst thing ever because that's when ADs love to make their firings and their decisions. Luke Fickell, is this a situation where no matter what, we're talking Sunday about, hey, are they going to fire Luke Fickell during this bye week despite what the AD said last week?
I think that this was a please win a couple games. Not this one, obviously, but please win a couple games coming home, please, Luke, so I don't have to do what a lot of people would like me to do, from athletic director Chris McIntosh. I don't think it's as strong a statement in that direction as Michael Alford's was about Mike Norvell. I mean, that was like a begging and pleading Mike Norvell to win some games down the stretch here so we don't have to fire you. This was a little bit less so. It's kind of, and we talked about on the Tuesday show, Brandon, like, it's kind of hard to even pick out the piece that is itself the vote of confidence in Luke Fickell in the statement. Like, clearly there's the part in there about money and more investment needed in the program. And that's true. I mean, at the end of the day, the rosters that Wisconsin played last week and play this week are double what Wisconsin's roster is from a money perspective. They are being outspent. They were not ready for what this particular era of college football is going to be. And so, yeah, you understand that they need some more investment, but I'm not so sure that even if they get that investment pledged, that Luke Fickell is going to be sticking around here. It's just not very clear that that's actually a vote of confidence statement. That's more of just kind of a statement to have something out there.
Yeah, a statement of fact, almost, you could just say at a certain point. And look, this game against Oregon, like, I mean, even if this wasn't a disaster, this could be a terrible game, right? Like, even if Wisconsin was average, it could be a terrible game. I think that, heading into this bye, this is going to be a really interesting moment for Luke Fickell. Not this week, obviously the next week. Because again, like, I think that that's a moment where you sit back and say, can we do anything on the quarterback front? Can we do anything on the offensive front? Can we make a staff change just for these last couple of games? Yeah. They play Washington, Indiana. That's going to be a tough one. And Illinois. And then they close out with Minnesota. Like, it is a tough road to end the year.
I don't see a win on there.
No, I don't either. They're 2-5 right now. I don't see, I mean, like, I think right now, like, you are just hoping for competitiveness in any of these games for the most part. Minnesota's probably the most manageable. Washington's been a little inconsistent, but, like, I mean, again, Oregon and Indiana, like, you're going to get beat by 40. That's just going to happen. Like, even best case scenario, you're getting beat by 40. Illinois, like, if you can move the ball a little bit, maybe. But I think that, and again, we'll kind of wait and see what happens. I mean, like, I think that if I'm Wisconsin, if I'm their athletic department, I want to see, whether it's firing an offensive coordinator, whether it's bringing in a new quarterback, whether it's trying something, like, you just got to do something, right? Like, we are at the point right now, you mentioned it, where they got outscored 37-0 against Iowa and 34-0 against Ohio State. And obviously Ohio State can just pick their number basically in every game they play right now. Like, you got to do something, man. Like, you just got to do something.
Shahan, the problem is they already changed the offensive coordinator. Like, yes, Wisconsin's problem is deeper than just, like, changing things around. The problem is Wisconsin has completely lost its identity. Yeah. And I think that with Jeff Grimes in as offensive coordinator this year, which the Phil Longo thing is, I mean, Shahan could write a book about that one. But, like, the situation where you bring in Jeff Grimes to fix this offense, to get you in a situation where you are physically dominating again, and then to come out and look like they have looked, it's more than just losing the games. There is a complete lack of identity in this program right now. The bedrock that you built this thing on for 40 years is no longer there as far as a physical advantage. Yes, you're on QB3. I understand that is very difficult for any offense. But at the end of the day, what is it exactly from a talent perspective and an athlete perspective up front even that you are hanging your hat on? There is nothing there for this Wisconsin team right now.
It's also interesting. I did this because you look at some of the Big Ten teams that have been facing troubles or have already made changes. They hired coaches that were so well regarded in the Big 12 as far as OCs. Andy Kotelnicki now at Penn State, and you've got Penn State fans that just been all over his butt for the last year and a half. And then you've got, as you mentioned, Jeff Grimes at Wisconsin, who I thought when he was at Baylor previously, I was like, this guy keeps this up, maybe he could be a head coach at some point. And instead, it's just absolutely fallen apart for him. it just goes to show you, man, if you get in a situation, if you don't have the type of pieces you need, but also it's like, we got to deliver now, as you mentioned, established identity. Hey, we don't have an identity. Establish one overnight for us. It's a no-win situation this day and age, especially at a place like Wisconsin, as you mentioned, where you don't have the NIL type money to go, okay, overnight change, we can do it. Here's what we need. We need 4 linemen. We need 2 quarterbacks. I need some receivers. You just can't do that in Wisconsin. And I'll add this. When reading that statement by Chris McIntosh, the AD, my interpretation, it's like reading poetry, right? My interpretation was like, he's challenging Luke Fickell, but he's also challenging the boosters and fans of, hey, let's all be competitive. Go win us a couple of games, but also fans, give us some more money here so that we can be in a position, whether Luke Fickell's the coach or not, that we can be able to capitalize going into the offseason.
100%. I think that this is the statement last week, I think, was less just a statement about Luke Fickell. It was a challenge, like you said, of what do we want to be as an athletic department, whether or not we move on from Luke Fickell at the end of the year. And just to, to briefly touch on that Jeff Grimes thing. I mean, look, I think that Grimes the past 2 years at Kansas and at Baylor, like he kind of fell into the doghouse for a lot of people with some of the struggles that he's had. But typically what he has done at a pretty high level is he's actually developed offensive lines, even as a coordinator at a pretty high level. You look at Kansas, even this year, they're playing really well on the offensive line. Baylor, the years he was there, played really well on the offensive line. I mean, we're just so far in at this point, right, with Wisconsin, where they're just in a huge hole. And this is a program that, you talk about identity, has defined itself by offensive line play really since Barry Alvarez was hired. And I think it was 1992. And right now their top running backs are averaging 3.9 and 3.6 yards per carry. That's kind of just it at the end of the day. It doesn't matter how cool the plays that you call are if your running backs and your offensive line just aren't winning.
WW bad. What would Barry Alvarez do? He seems always.
I think you might
be interim coach.
Find out. You keep playing like this, you might actually find out.
Interim coach once again. Oh man,
how old is he at this point?
I don't know, but he's always around. He's been helping out with the Big Ten office for the last few years, so he's around.
He's 78. He's 78 again. Like I said, just old enough to run for president, so I think he could be the interim coach at Wisconsin.
Let's not go down that road. Okay. Big game in the SEC. The SEC's got 3 ranked-on-ranked matchups this week. Arguably the biggest one is Oklahoma hosting Ole Miss. Ole Miss coming off that loss in a very entertaining game at Georgia, where Georgia scored 17 unanswered in the fourth quarter to kind of steal away a potential victory there for Ole Miss that would score touchdowns in their first 5 possessions. Looked unstoppable offensively. Now they go up against an OU defense that's number 1 or number 2 in scoring and defense, and also just in total defense. And it's another road game for Ole Miss. But Oklahoma, John Mateer is back at quarterback from that hand surgery, but his numbers quite haven't been back to pre-surgery situations, especially in the run game. Big situation here. Pressure on both programs just to stay in the playoff hunt, of course. But this also sets up where we could see a slide if OU loses this, because every single opponent remaining on their schedule is ranked in the top 20. So you got to get home wins.
Yeah, I think OU, we got to figure out if Oklahoma, from an offense perspective, can hang with SEC opponents. It's all well and good against Illinois State, whoever it was they played week 1, but it has not looked so swimming for Brent Venables, even with John Mateer, against SEC opponents. So we'll see about that. I mean, look, you got Lane already talking a little mess about how Brent's stealing signs and all that sort of stuff. I do wonder if disrespect will be addressed from Oklahoma's defense on the field on Saturday. At the end of the day, with Trinidad Chambliss, I'm very interested in how Trinidad Chambliss handles this very different defensive challenge. Whereas with LSU, obviously another great defense that they've played has Ole Miss. That's about the one-on-one matchups with the receivers. But I think Brent Venables is going to be able to throw some stuff at him from a coverage perspective that I think is really curious for Trinidad Chambliss. I think you pen him in with that pass rush. We know that that Brent Venables will bring some blitzes at him, but no, I actually think you pen Trinidad Chambliss in. You try to make him be a pocket passer, you try to make them execute down the field that Lane Kiffin Ole Miss offense, and we'll see if they can do it. I don't know that they can.
It's interesting though. Okay, so there's two pieces from what you just mentioned that I want to address. One, Oklahoma did a pretty poor job of setting the edge against Arch Manning, right? Like a lot of his opportunities that he created were getting out of the pocket and throwing on the run and buying time. Like you said, I think they can do it at a higher level. I think they were trying to get him on the ground, but that's something that's going to be interesting to watch against an Ole Miss team that I think is quite a bit more explosive and dynamic than what Texas brings to the table. And by the way, a better offensive line than at least Texas has played right now. The other thing, though, too, you mentioned, of course, the Oklahoma defense side of things. I mean, when you look at this Oklahoma offense, it's mostly, the hand injury is obviously a factor. I'm not going to say that's zero factor, but even in those early games, this offense was mostly John Mateer doing stuff. And there were very few teams that were really able to take advantage of it. In fact, that was kind of the first game that gave me some red flags about Michigan secondary, that it might not be what we're used to. That was a huge red flag. Obviously, Auburn hasn't been very good in the middle of the field on defense. Texas completely blew that up, gave them huge issues. I mean, honestly, South Carolina on the back end did a pretty good job. They just couldn't win against Oklahoma's offensive line consistently. I kind of worry that this is an Ole Miss defense that I think absolutely has the ability to take away some of the playmaking of a John Mateer. I'm really worried, not just in this game, the last 5 games, like you mentioned, all against top 20 opponents, for the most part, all against really good defenses. This Oklahoma offensive line has struggled. Their running game is essentially non-existent. Their receivers aren't all that special. If this is John Mateer having to just make some stuff happen versus what Ole Miss brings to the table, I definitely give the edge to Oklahoma's defense. It's the best unit in this game, but I think that, I don't want to say that they're going to go 6 points like they did against Texas, but I think it'll be 14 or less.
What's interesting is I've seen Oklahoma in person twice, and each team, Michigan and Auburn, had receivers running free downfield. It's just that their quarterbacks, Bryce Underwood and Jackson Arnold, couldn't hit their guys. That helped them quite a bit, obviously. But also, OU just doesn't force turnovers. They're tied for worst in the SEC with only forcing 4 takeaways this year. They're -5 in turnover margin. This is a situation where if OU go at defense, I know it's number 1 in scoring defense and all that stuff, but Ole Miss can take the top off, and Lane Kiffin schemes things open better than almost anybody else in the country. OU could be in a lot of trouble defensively in this game if they are not able to consistently get pressure on Trinidad Chambliss before he has an opportunity to let go of the football. That's what I'm watching. As great as we mentioned, and the OU defense has been, there have been some little cracks in the armor that I've seen in some games in person this year. This will be a lot of fun. This game will be a lot of fun. I think it could be tight, and I think somewhere in the second half, someone's going to have to make 1 or 2 big plays, and that's the team that's going to win. Okay, we are going to take a quick break here on the College Football Insiders. More coming up on the Pressure Index for Week 9.
Only CBS Sports can bring you big time during the heart of Saturday afternoons. It's big time.
It's big time. It's big time. It's big time.
On CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus.
We are back on the College Football Insiders. Thanks for watching us. If you are on YouTube and listening to us on all your podcast platforms, make sure to leave us a 5-star review if you would. All right. So we got some history, I say, on the line here. And the reason why I say that for Mizzou at Vanderbilt is if Vanderbilt ends up winning this game in Nashville, we need to start talking about them as a playoff team, right? They're quote unquote in that hunt now. But if you get back-to-back wins against ranked opponents in the SEC, and with the schedule that's remaining, all of a sudden we're talking about a legitimate chance for Vanderbilt to get in. Also, not to say breathing room, because we automatically assume that a 2-loss SEC team is going to get into the playoff. But because of how everything else is stacking up in the other major conferences, there's a potential here for a 3-loss SEC team to get in. Not a Mizzou, because their schedule just has been dog crap, let's face it, for most of the year. But there's potential there, depending on which team it is with the 3 losses that could get in there, and depending on what those 3 losses are against. I think in a lot of ways, of course, you could say it's must win for either team, Mizzou and Vanderbilt, both with one loss. But in my eyes, this is a moment for Vanderbilt to say, hey, we're not just the Cinderella dancing around at the ball. You guys get to say, oh, that looks great. That's great. And then midnight hits and it's okay. Let's talk about the other teams. But if they win this game, I think we're going to be talking about them the rest of the season.
I mean, Vanderbilt, we know that Vanderbilt is a good football team. Like, not just surprising, not just happy to be here. They're just good. So now, again, it's a tough it will be a tough matchup against Missouri because Missouri is also a pretty good football team. I am interested in how Missouri is going to perform. Brandon pretty much just mentioned it. Missouri's schedule is ramping up right now. Started with the Bama game a couple weeks ago. Now, how does Missouri handle this tough stretch here? Ahmad Hardy, great back, but how much is it breaking tackles against lesser opponents and opponents that Missouri could very well handle? I really like Vanderbilt in this game. I think I wonder if they're going to trip up coming down the stretch. But if they can get through this game, besides Tennessee, they are playing better football than Texas right now. Full stop. Like, they should be able to get Texas when they have Texas later in November. Tennessee, we'll get to that Thanksgiving weekend. But other than that, you kind of say, all right, 4 games left after that, I believe. And you feel really good about Vanderbilt.
No, this is a battle of two teams that I think the winner is in the driver's seat to make the college football playoff. When we did our midseason picks, I had Missouri as one of my teams as the number 10 team. I think that Vanderbilt is right there with them. If they win this game, I think it changes a whole lot. And so I think that the other thing about it, the thing that makes this game so much fun is that these are two teams that are incredibly well coached and have fantastic identity, right? With Missouri, it's been that pass rush. It's been the way that they've run the ball. With Vanderbilt, it's been the playmaking of Diego Pavia. It's been fundamentally sound defense. And I think that all of those things are going to be put to the test in a big way. Obviously, Missouri, it's going to be, can you get Diego Pavia to the ground, right? Not just can you get to him, can you get him down? For, when you talk about the other direction, it's going to be okay. Missouri, you've got, Vanderbilt, you've got this fundamentally sound defense, but you haven't necessarily played a running back like Ahmad Hardy to this point, who's just a bowling ball down the field. So it's going to be, I think, a very competitive game. I think it's going to be one of the sort of most well-played games that we've seen in the SEC this year. And I mean, again, it's really going to come down to which team can create maybe one more play than the other.
Yeah, listen to this. All right. Vanderbilt is second in the FBS on third downs on offense. Missouri is 7th in the FBS in third down defense. So big showdown there on third downs. Ahmad Hardy, he's rushed for under 60 yards in each of these last 2 games. And as you said, the question now is, was that because he was chewing up on them little dogs and now he's going against the big dogs and he's lost his bark? I think there's a potential here for him to kind of come out of the shell a little bit more. I know Vanderbilt has been very good at times defensively, especially against the run, but looking at the inside of these lines, I kind of like the advantage here for Mizzou. That's going to be something to watch. If Ahmad Hardy can get going, pick up some of those yards after contact, get through the defensive line, I like Mizzou's chances in this. And we'll make our quick picks later. But this is for the Show Me State team, this is Show Me for them this week. I think this sets up very well for Mizzou, to be quite honest. You talk about Diego Pavia. He's number 5 in the Heisman betting market right now.
Go get it, because I think with the lion's share of attention that he will get just because of his outsized personality, I could absolutely see him. I mean, at the very least, being in New York, if they continue to navigate this schedule, I think either Ty Simpson or maybe a Julian Sayin may edge him by the end. But I think that's a really, really good value play, Brandon.
Oh yeah, he's at plus 800 right now. He's just behind Marcel Reed at Texas A&M at plus 750, and A&M's got a big game coming up in the Bayou at Baton Rouge at night.
That should also be Mario Craver, let's be honest.
Well, he's the big benefactor for all that right now. But Diego, if Marcel, quote unquote, struggles and loses this week and Diego wins, you're looking all of a sudden at Diego climbing them charts, being the 4th best right there. And who's to say that Julian Sayin, well, I think Julian Sayin's a safe bet at this point. He just dissects everybody. Same with Mendoza, but Ty Simpson, very tough schedule still to play here against some really good defenses. So who knows? We'll see. Maybe they can invite 4 guys to New York City, and maybe we get to see Diego up there
and
with his mom and Theo Vaughn and everybody.
Let's relax. Let's relax. I was amused that like Theo Vaughn and Nate Bargatze are literally the only 2 Vanderbilt fans. Like they just keep going back to them over and over and over again because they just don't have any other guys. But I mean, one thing that I think is really striking for Diego Pavia is like last year he was a big time playmaker. You know, he'd throw for 131 yards, but dang it, like those were the biggest 131 yards of the game. Like this year, he actually has good numbers, right? Like he's 1,570 yards passing, 15 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. He's been a big time runner for this team. Like he is actually putting up, again, well, I don't know, Heisman caliber numbers, but really good quarterback numbers and doing everything for this team.
Yeah, you don't get a player like, and I cannot really recall a player that has really so much just like dragged an entire program into relevance like he has from complete irrelevance. Like I know Texas A&M and Johnny Manziel, for instance, that was, culture phenomenon, all that kind of stuff. But it's not like Texas A&M was completely irrelevant as a program when he got there. But Vanderbilt was just struggling and flailing, and they brought this guy in, and he has taken them, to heights basically unprecedented in this program's modern history.
Yeah,
and by the way, like, I mean, I don't want to say this to the same level because obviously this guy is this guy, but like, it reminds me a little of Cam Newton, right? Where like he just comes in and just changes everything. Now, of course, you kind of got to see, does everything change back as soon as he leaves? That's going to be a big question. I like what they've built there, but like he has just been that kind of force at Vanderbilt. And it's crazy to think that this dude was playing at New Mexico Military Academy just like 4 years ago.
Yeah. And him and Jerry Kill now in Nashville, just killing it.
And Tim Beck. Yeah.
And Tim Beck and Vanderbilt's offensive line, they deserve their flowers too. They've been incredible all season. I don't think they're getting enough looks right now. Okay, let's move on to another SEC battle, the third ranked-on-ranked battle in the SEC this week. Texas A&M in the top 3 in the nation, going to LSU to Baton Rouge to play at night where there's a chance of rain. Never. And LSU and Brian Kelly's backs are against the wall. They might not say it, but they're against the wall. And they're at home, and this is the type of game, even if it is against a top-tier opponent, a undefeated opponent, that fans there just believe you should win. Because it's at night, because it's in the Bayou, this is a game you should win. That is a lot to put on any coach, but for a coach like Brian Kelly, who hasn't really been able to do much since the last couple of years, I should say, as far as contending in the SEC, this certainly does kind of seem like a must-win situation, fair or not.
Yeah, the matchup, I think, is pretty clear. Shahan actually just mentioned him. Mario Craver, their wide receiver, Casey Concepcion, they're really, really good wide receiver core against A.J. Halsey, Mansour Delane, a little bit of DJ Pickett. It's just an incredible styles make fights matchup for those defensive backs that LSU has against that wide receiver core that A&M has that has given Marcel Reed so much this season.
No, and I think that ultimately it comes down to which team is able to move the ball on the ground at least a little bit, right? Because this is an LSU offense and offensive line that really just has not been able to get anything going after losing 2 tackles to the NFL. And by the way, Texas A&M has one of the best defensive lines in the country, especially when it comes to rushing the passer. So I think it's going to be which offense can just stay on the field. And to me, that offense is clearly just Texas A&M, right? Obviously, Le'Veon Moss has been dealing with injuries, but Ruben Owens back there, Marcel Reed as a runner as well, I think is a big deal in this kind of matchup. It's ironic. I was in College Station last year whenever Marcel Reed came off the bench for Connor Wigman and rushed for 3 touchdowns and changed everything about this Texas A&M program. I think that, I don't expect as many explosives, of course, in this game for either team, frankly. LSU did a lot last year, too. But I think that his playmaking is just going to be the difference in this game. I mentioned, I think that Mario Craver and Casey Concepcion should probably hold up the Heisman Trophy together. But I think that this is a game where Marcel Reed is kind of the difference maker. Yeah,
as much as LSU's relied on that defense, we got to see something from that offense. because otherwise you lose this game and your offense is the reason why. Don't we think there will at least maybe be a change there at OC here coming up, especially with these games coming up?
Well, and this is it, right? They're a 2-loss team. Once you lose your third, like you've mentioned, I think that there's a case for a 3-loss SEC team to get in, but not with the way that they've played, not with the quality of play that they've had, not with the losses that they've had. LSU has to be a 2-loss team to make the college football playoff. There is no room for error left for this team. It has to start on Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's move on here to our latest on the coaching carousel. I've been on the phone all week just because I'm like, you know what? I'm sick of not really hearing anything.
Yeah, well, then the problem is with this coaching cycle, you get on the phone and you just start hearing way too much. So I know how that goes, Brandon.
Yeah, so you start calling, you start texting or whatever, but I think it would be a good time now, since some jobs have been open for a couple of weeks, several weeks, to kind of take a little temperature check on where everything is right now among some of these coaching searches. So I made some calls and everything, and I wanted to check in on Oregon State. You know, yes, they just made a change not all that long ago after starting over, but they're in a situation where they might be looking at some retreads at head coach. Right now, the two big names that I heard the most this week are Paul Chryst, former Wisconsin coach, who, by the way, Wisconsin fired despite winning 9 of his final 14 regular season games, and now they got Luke Fickell. And then you've got Ed Orgeron, who, of course, won that national championship at LSU back in 2019, and then everything fell apart after that. He's quite the personality. He's got some connections out on the West Coast, and Paul Chryst has connections on the West Coast. Heck, he was the OC at Oregon State back in the early 2000s. And so their names have been coming up here quite a bit these last few days. So that's something to watch. Do we think Ed Orgeron's going to be coaching next year? Do you think someone's going to take that chance?
You know what I think, Brandon? I think it's very curious if you paid attention to the comments that Ed Orgeron has made this week. Ed Orgeron said he'd be happy to come back as a defensive line coach too, which strikes. Yes, he said that on 3. Our pals Andy Staples and Ari Wasserman. He said that to them. That to me hints at a level of desperation. By the way, we know Ed's money runs out December 1st. That buyout money don't stop coming. So he got to get off the beach.
He's living in Miami, baby. It's expensive.
Yeah, he got to get off the beach now. He got to fund that lifestyle. Ed Orgeron has West Coast ties, I should say, and was a really good West Coast recruiter for USC. So he's got ties out there. I don't know if Oregon State's the right fit for him specifically. You know, Mike Riley is going to be on that hiring committee. So I think it's very, very, I just think it'd be very interesting for a Mike Riley job interview with Ed Orgeron. I'd love to be on a fly on a wall for that one.
I'll tell you what, there's West Coast recruiting ties and there's Corvallis, Oregon, right? Like those are 2 different
famously
things.
Not actually that close to Los Angeles, my sources tell me.
Yeah. The people don't realize how far the Pac-12 schools were from each other, but that's a whole other conversation. It's interesting, right? I mean, I do think that Ed Orgeron is going to be back in college football in some capacity next year. I think he will be coaching. I do wonder, though, if it's as an assistant head coach, associate head coach, because, I mean, the reality of the situation is I think that Edo is going to come back, and I think he's going to be motivated, but, like, it just leaves a certain taste in your mouth the way that he ended his LSU tenure, right? They completely tanked after putting together arguably the greatest team in the history of college football. Like we've rarely seen a flame out quite like that. Now, I think, again, he's been around the game. He's stayed motivated, all this sort of stuff, but he's also going to be stepping into a situation and a new world that he hasn't actually dealt with before.
Yeah.
So I think for him, being like the defensive line coach at UCLA, being the defensive line coach at going to a good big time program is probably the safer way in. Now, I do think at the same time, if you're Oregon State, I mean, here's the reality as well, is that I do think that hiring somebody who is program builder adjacent might make some sense, right? Paul Chryst being somebody who has been that, because you need this next guy to chart out the next vision of what your program is. Trent Bray, was just unfortunately not necessarily qualified, I guess, to do
He
that.
didn't want
right?
to. He didn't want to be the CEO type. He didn't want to deal with
Yeah.
anything other than
The
coaching.
athletic director literally said that.
Yeah,
After they fired
which is
him.
crazy, And so I think that a coach who has a really strong history of building an administration is,
And who
going
knows
to,
about Scott Barnes, the AD, by the way.
Yeah,
That's another thing to take into
that's
consideration
100%
here.
something to keep an eye on. And no, I mean, and even I mean, we made the comparison. Washington State opened last year. They hired an FCS coach, Jimmy Rogers, a very well regarded one. But like, I think that these programs that are kind of caught in between levels are going to understand we need to build something sustainable and lasting that can maybe deal with some of the turnover of this moment.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Okay, we got much more coaching carousel talk and some intel to share here, but first we're going to take this break.
This is European soccer's biggest stage.
Written in the stars! What a difference she has made!
The question is, can you handle it?
The crowd here feels electric.
Stream every match of the UEFA Women's Champions League on Paramount+.
And we are back here on the College Football Insiders. We started before the break talking about the coaching carousel and some intel, some things, some rumblings we've been hearing. We talked about the West Coast in Oregon State. I'm going to stay on the West Coast here real quick just to mention a name we just talked about, Paul Chryst. I've heard his name also pop up at Stanford, which, man, that makes a lot of sense just from a 30,000-foot view, in my opinion. But, we'll see. They're going to be talking quite a bit here and trying to figure things out with their coaching search because they've had the longest of everybody of trying to figure out what their situation is going to be.
Matt, or excuse me, Brandon, I'm sorry. I think that
the bold whites, it's fine.
Zenith is on the brain. I think that the curious thing for me about Stanford is I think Andrew Luck sprays the board as far as how far wide
as he should. I
think this one could get weird. I think they can go all different kind of corners. The NFL, you never know where the trajectory of this search.
Yeah. Speaking of NFL, I do wonder when do we start hearing the Joe Brady name start popping up again out of Buffalo? Because there's going to be so many openings, and he's that young guy that, I don't know. I haven't heard that at all, but that just keeps popping in my brain as we go through this.
The thing that I'd heard about, and I inquired about this a little bit, the thing that I'd heard about Joe is that Joe may want to stick around to try to get an NFL head coaching job. In this NFL head coaching cycle, could you pair him with a young quarterback? Miami probably going to come open. The Dolphins not the Hurricanes. The Dolphins maybe comes open. That's a job that
it'll be Quinn Ewers season. I can't wait.
It's one of these places. Maybe with a young quarterback, maybe you pair him up and you make it work.
So the thing that I had also heard in the past about Joe Brady is that he didn't love the recruiting game, and that wasn't his fate. He didn't enjoy that about college football.
So he got an Orgeron fired. That was the reason.
Well, and I think the other piece too, right, is like you said. I mean, you could be an NFL head coach. So, I mean, I think it's a call worth making, right? But you're also talking about somebody who, again, like Ed Orgeron, has not been in college football through these changes, So when you talk about him for the type of jobs that it would take to attract him, that's a disconnect that I'm just not 100% sure about. Now, again, really, really exciting young offensive mind. I think that whoever got him would be very well coached, but I don't know. I mean, but we are going to learn as we get further into this carousel. There are going to be a lot more openings than there are high level prospects.
Yeah,
my question about Joe Brady also, and it bridges us into the next job, is does old Terry Pagula want to risk potentially getting to the Super Bowl with his Bills to try to hire Joe Brady in at Penn State? I do not think that is going to be the case. But when we talk about links, that is a link that Joe Brady could have to college if he were to want to actually come back to college.
I remember
I don't know if Pagula would do it.
As soon as Franklin was fired, I saw chatter about people, all the fans going, hey, they could do that. But hey, speaking of Penn State, also another name I heard, don't discount this, especially they keep winning and they start putting up some points and their quarterback ends up going in the Heisman Trophy race and maybe winning it in December. Brian Hartline at Ohio State. Remember, he's taken over play calling duties these last 2 years. I mean, goodness gracious, you get him in the playoff again after a national championship run, and then you got him in position as a favorite once again. Who's to say if, things aren't quite working out with Matt Rule at Nebraska, he's cooling off, he starts losing games. We're we need to rethink that. And some other coaches out there, maybe Brian Hartline would emerge there I've heard his name coming up here a lot more here in the last few days. But that Penn State search, I think as much as like a lot of us sit here and just kind of assume like, well, it's one of these two guys, much like Florida right now, there's so much of a season left to play that some of these guys that are in play might just all of a sudden the boosters go, oh, hell no, we're not doing that right now.
Also,
Matt Rule.
Yeah, also keep in mind, Brandon, because I've also heard Brian Hartline's name kind of start to bubble up around Penn State. Like, nature abhors a vacuum, and there is something of a vacuum in these searches where I think that there is a disconnect between what boosters want to happen and think is going to happen at a place like Florida, Lane Kiffin, at a place like Penn State, Matt Rule, and how this search actually gets going. Florida's running with a search firm for the first time pretty much ever as far as football is concerned. Scott Strickland did not do that last time. He sort of had like a more like a hiring committee approach of close confidence in the athletic.
He went the Jeremy Foley route.
Yeah, but Pat Kraft is actually doing the Jeremy Foley route, so to speak. Pat Kraft is kind of taking the ball and running here. Now, I know that's going to lead a lot of people to then continue to assume Matt Rule. But if you go into a coaching search thinking it is one name or bust, it's just not good process about how to approach the coach.
Well, and by the way, our boy Matt Rule went out and got beat 24-6 by Minnesota as soon as this job came open, right? So like that's also a factor to take into account is that, I mean, if you're going to start talking about swings and stuff like that, it might not feel like as much of a swing and you might not have the donor support to make the kind of offer you need to make depending on how things go. Heartline is so interesting, right? Because one, I'll tell you what, the existential issue at Penn State was they weren't putting out great wide receivers anymore. Well, I think that this might do something about it if Brian Hartline was the head coach at Penn State. But it also is interesting too, right? Because you pay $50 million with offset, it'll be a lot less than that to fire a coach, to potentially hire a coordinator, a first-time play caller as a coordinator as well. It's an interesting battle. Now, I've heard over the years that Brian Hartline has been approached by a lot of major college programs for head coaching opportunities, and he understands and knows where he is and that he's in a really good position that he doesn't have to leave. And two, he can sit and wait because his star is only going to continue to rise. Now, has it risen to the level of a Penn State? That'll be interesting to see whenever that process comes around. But it makes a lot of sense that his name's getting brought up. I do feel, again, if you are a Penn State donor, I don't know how you feel about firing a $50 million head coach to bring in a coordinator. I don't know, but I do also think something that we've talked about over, the past month or two is that I think it's going to be harder than people realize in this era, in this moment, to hire away sitting major conference head coaches, because every program in the country right now has the ability to make it worth your while to stay.
And they also just don't want to have a coaching search of their own. They're like, no, thanks. Not 100%. In this market. Not at this time.
100%.
Okay. All right. And speaking of which, one of the hottest coaches out there, of course, is Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss. His name came up a few years ago at Auburn. He turned that down and
took him a little while to turn it down, though. We went all the way into Egg Bowl week with that one going.
Yeah. And now he stayed at Ole Miss, and of course, he's just kept it revved up there. And now Florida. The rumors there, of course, started up a few weeks before Billy Napier was even fired. I'm interested to kind of hear what that talk would be like after this week. Say Ole Miss loses at Oklahoma. I almost feel like that helps Florida in a lot of ways if that's truly the guy they would want to go after.
Brandon, brother, I'll tell you this. I don't know if there's anything that will quell the Florida fan base's thirst for Lane Kiffin to be their next head coach. I personally tend to think it's a little odd that Lane Kiffin is the automatic all systems go bet from the fan base. You didn't like the Mississippi head coach who called offensive plays. You didn't like the head coach who called offensive plays. You didn't like the Nick Saban assistant. All of those amalgamations have been the non-Urban Meyer head coaches in the last 11 years at the University of Florida. You didn't like any of them. Well, Lane Kiffin is quite literally every single one of those guys rolled into one. I understand that offense go boom, but with Lane, besides the points and the Twitter account, what is it that endears everybody so much to Lane Kiffin, the head coach?
Okay, the modern day Steve Spurrier, because you say all that,
Florida, across essentially their entire history, hasn't liked anybody unless they're a top 10 coach in the history of college football. So, like, I get it, but there's no like clear pathway. There's no clear type of candidate that's proven to work at Florida unless there's Steve Spurrier or Urban Meyer. Like, we're all timers.
Let's get them both. Let's get them both in. They can do a co-head coach situation,
Hey, you know who just got added to the staff was Steve Spurrier Jr. You can just go ahead and promote him. But I do think, like, so I get what you're asking. I totally do. But one, I think that people think, yeah, there's the Mullen comp, obviously, but he recruits at a much higher level. And that's kind of like the big thing people hated.
Not high school.
That's another conversation. Yes. But that is something from a roster acquisition perspective. People feel like Lane's a lot more aggressive too. Like, the other thing as well is that Lane right now in the SEC, outside of like Kirby, literally, is probably the highest floor coach in the conference. Like, he is winning 10 games essentially every single year. And Florida hasn't been a high floor team in a very long time.
In 11 years.
Yeah.
Whoever the coach ends up being there, Lane Kiffin, whatever, they better come in, and among their opening remarks better be, we're going to dominate the state in high school recruiting. We're going to tap back into that. We're going to get great transfers. Make no mistake about that. But we're going to kick everybody's ass in this state. That's kind of what I think from the outside looking in. I think the fan base, I don't know. You tell me, Richard. You obviously know much better than me. But, like, I think Eli Drinkowitz would be perfect for Florida.
If you look at the last 2 years and then include this one, what is the difference between Eli Drinkowitz and Lane Kiffin? Like,
here's what I think the difference is for the fans. Eli Drinkowitz is a dork.
Yes. Eli Drinkowitz is kind of a nerd, but, like, they both have the same thing where they're winning double-digit games in the post-NIL rev share era. And yes, they have not been able to summit the top. They haven't been able to beat Alabama, for instance. Obviously, Lane got Georgia last year. But, I understand that neither have tried to summit. But, like, again, this is my point. Like, I don't get what makes Lane Kiffin just this, like, head and shoulders top option for this fan base. And by the way, Brandon, the thing that neither of us have brought up yet is, despite what they may think, the fans do not hire the coach. Yeah. And the guy who is making this hire, whether Florida fans want to
tell the University of Tennessee that now. Tell the University of Tennessee that the fans don't hire the coach.
Whether Florida fans want to hear it or not, Scott Strickland's making the hire. And I think some folks in that administration, I have my doubts about whether they actually want to hire Lane Kiffin. And keep this in mind. Lane Kiffin, because he's done this before via his representation, will run this string out. Mm-hmm. Like, at the end of the day, he may play this all the way up until Thanksgiving week. He may play it beyond Thanksgiving weekend if they're in the SEC championship game or in the college football playoff.
The playoff hunt. I mean, that is very much on the table. I mean, do you think Lane Kiffin is going to just say, well, we're in the playoff. See ya.
Yeah.
I'm going to Florida?
Right.
I don't see that.
Unless Ole Miss wants to put a big fat contract number in front of him that's way more than Kurt Cignetti just got.
Oh, by the way, I wanted to mention that too. I've been talking to the AD, Keith Carter. That's why I put it on here. I talked to him Tuesday. He said that they're still trying to talk things out about the contract and everything. But my immediate read on that was, yeah, he's playing this out. It's not going to be a Cignetti situation where you walk in the office, go, what do you think about a contract extension? Yeah, whatever. Call my agent. Like Kurt Cignetti did last week. That they're going to play this one out. And but that's why I asked, if they lose it, OU, is that better for Florida as far as just trying to speed things up and have a clearer picture of who they're really going to go after here in late November? But we'll see.
I wonder.
We'll see. Also, Jimbo Fisher's been out there talking, hey, I want to get back into coaching. He's been talking about this for the better part of a year. He's really ramping things up right now. I pitched something on Twitter just because I was bored. And I was like, you know what? He's getting paid $7.1 million a year through 2031 because of his monstrous buyout, the biggest ever at Texas A&M. Why not go to a school and go, hey, listen, buddy, I'm a retread of a retread. I know you don't want to spend a lot of money on me. How about you give me like a $500,000 salary or something like that, and you invest all the rest of that money on my assistants and resources and NIL, and let's go see if we can win us a championship in the next 3 years, wherever that's at. I just don't know if Jimbo Fisher's ego will allow him to do that. And that's the big question. Because, like, Everybody I talk to agent-wise is going, yeah, he wants to coach, but would he take the UAB job? And my answer is probably not. No, he wants to be in power football.
That's the thing is I think that Ed Orgeron, one, because of like you said, the cost of his lifestyle, and two, I think also just because I think he wants to be back in football more than Jimbo probably actually does, right? I think Jimbo wants to I don't want to use the words exactly repair his reputation, but I think that he knows that he's capable of more and can go out on a better note than he did at Texas A&M. But one, none of the major jobs are going to hire him, right? Like they're just not at this point. So it is a question of, I don't think that you necessarily have to go all the way down to UAB, but I think it's going to be more like Arkansas. I mean, again, like in Arkansas, it would be a great job for him if he was able to get. I don't even know if he'll be in consideration for that, right? But like, are you going to take Oregon State? Are you going to take, one of these jobs that could come Coastal Carolina, right? Like these are the type of jobs that like might be available to him. And I think he's going to have to ask himself a very serious question of, do you want to coach football more, or do you just not want to be a laughing stock anymore? Because those are two different things.
My question about Jimbo, you talk about ego, Brandon. My question with Jimbo is, are you going to call plays here?
Or when you spend all that money on your assistants, are any of your assistants going to be given jobs?
Exactly. What are we doing there? But I will say, I mean, look, there's one high-profile job, and Brandon knows exactly where I'm going, that I think there are significant power players who have always wanted Jimbo Fisher to be their head coach. So. You know exactly where I'm going with this. On the Plains, if there is a change with Mr. Freeze, could we see the dream realized for some people, at least in that athletic department, that booster corps, for Jimbo Fisher to be the Auburn head coach?
I won't write anything off, but it's like the dream of the 90s is alive in a lot of these coaching searches.
Hey, sounds like Oregon State to me. That's basically Portland.
That's what.
But now here's the real job I'm going to propose for Jimbo Fisher. Okay, ready for this one? Texas offensive coordinator.
Oh God!
Let him call plays instead of Sark. Give him the only job being calling plays.
Number one, Sark doesn't want to give it up. We all know that. Two, I don't think he would want to give it up to Jimbo and deal with that clash of personalities. You mean the one coach who called out the greatest coach of all time, Nick Saban, at a press conference? I want him on my staff and me telling him no and yes to things. I don't know about that. Don't know.
This is the funny thing. I mean, again, like now, one thing that we have to say is like we bring up some of these names that are bad or controversial. It's because they've also like done bad things. Like Jimbo Fisher, like he just failed as a coach. Let's be clear about that too. But it's been a couple of years. Like and again, it was stubbornness that killed him at Texas A&M. If you are a big time program, do you want to hire a guy whose stubbornness killed one of the most expensive rosters in college football?
Yeah. And Bobby Petrino, who was his last coordinator at A&M, even said that, I was calling plays, but we're still using Jimbo's terminology and some of his things. So it made his job.
You want to do that, Bobby? You want to do something different?
Yeah. So it was making Bobby's job difficult, like going, well, you got me here to install my offense. And you're telling me to change the entire language. So I have to work through all this in addition to teaching the kids. It just made things a little bit more complicated.
By the way, convenient of Bobby to let us all know that's the reason
it wasn't even me, guys. It wasn't me.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Okay. All right. Real quick, inside the insiders. I've got something to share. Does anybody else have anything to share?
I got something coming next week. Not ready for this week. Not ready for prime time yet. Delayed until next week, but it's coming.
Okay. Ooh, that's quite the tease. Not even a hint.
No, not yet.
I'm going to have to talk to you offline. So last weekend I went to the ACC's Game Day Operations Center, or just a replay center. It was a heck of an experience. I spent more than 25 hours in that room over 2 days, Friday evening through early Saturday morning, and then Saturday night all the way through about 2:30 at night on Sunday morning. Eye-opening experience. It's very much a situation where they look at those replays, and it's very much just a very process-oriented, very calm. Like you could tell they're just like, they take a big deep breath before every replay. Okay, what was the ruling on the field? Okay, all right, let's take these camera angles. Let's look at these two. And they go through the process. They walk through everything. And a lot of you guys have seen their new transparent system where select games on the weekends, they broadcast the video and the audio from the replay center there in Charlotte. And what you see on TV is pretty much what you see even when the cameras aren't on them. They're doing the same exact things. They're speaking with the same cadence. They're saying the same things. You know, those cameras are off. It isn't like they're going, how can we help Florida State? It's not like that, you know? And I know, listen, fandom, it's always like, they're always going to give the calls to Bama. They're always going to give the calls to Texas. I always know. I knew it. Well, I mean, listen, I think the ACC Replay Center is very much in a reflection of probably all these major conferences replay centers. They take their job seriously and they know what you think. And so that's why they work so hard to do it. I also found it very fascinating that they've literally got like a replay manual just for the ACC that's like this thick. And they kept pulling that thing out and looking at things. And even for plays that weren't reviewable, they would rewind and go through like hypothetical situations. Like, what if this guy slid out of bounds on this touchback? Did he go in? Did the receiver go in and out on this or whatever on a big play, even though a guy didn't catch the ball? Like, well, did he actually go out? Let's go back and look. Did he go out? They're looking at things. They're just trying to always quiz themselves and keep their minds running. And kudos to them because, man, those guys, I mean, they take, slots and rotations and everything, but they're in there from 11 a.m. all the way until 2:30 a.m. the next day. They're not leaving. And a lot of coffee, a lot of Cuban coffee. Al Rivaran, who is the head of officials there, very nice guy, former NFL official supervisor. He runs the ACC Replay Center. He is constantly making Cuban coffee and bringing them in and going, anybody ready for a shot? Let's do shots. He does about 8 to 9 every Saturday, and I can believe it. He's got to be up and at him. And it's very interesting. He's very much like a teacher in a classroom. Like whenever a replay is happening, he gets up from his seat. He's watching the big boards and everything. He gets up and gets behind the replay official, and he's like quizzing him. He's like, look at this camera angle. And he goes, maybe you should do that near handheld. Look at the near handheld. Okay. Did he tell you what the ruling on the field was? Because I never heard it. Do this. Okay. Anyway, eye-opening stuff that you don't get to see up close, but helps you better understand the game and just how seriously everybody takes it from an officiating standpoint. Even though, a lot of these guys, we just don't treat like humans because we're like, they hurt my team. And they're trying their best to get it done, man.
I'm glad you wrote that story. I was texting you Saturday night. I'm so glad you were in the replay booth for the Stanford ending because that was just really quite something.
And you could tell, like, when that happened, it was like oh, no. It was like, oh, God, this is going to come down to us. And it was a simple thing. I wrote in the story, like, pretty much a transcript, which wasn't on TV, of what just like they had the camera angles they had, and you got to have conclusive evidence. So they had the ruling on the field had to stand. But it may have been a lot different if they had a pylon camera. And again, that's a situation where it's just a matter of the technology, the money for these games, and kind of trying to, potentially at some point making everything more universal as far as we need to have this many cameras at every single conference game, need to have a pylon camera, things like that. And those are issues for every single conference. Okay. All right, let's get to some quick picks. Big week ahead and a big week for the American Conference, guys. A big showdown in Memphis. Memphis with 11-game home winning streak there at the Liberty Bowl. They host number 18 USF. Memphis coming off that disappointing loss on the road at UAB, and kudos to Alex Mortensen for getting that one for UAB in the interim here. Who we got? USF at Memphis.
Banged up Brendan Lewis at best. Give me USF.
Yeah, Memphis, I think, has some holes. South Florida, I think, has very, very few holes at this point. Give me the Bulls.
Yeah, questions at quarterback for Memphis, and USF is able to run that darn ball. I like USF. UCLA at number 2, Indiana. Does Tim Skipper and Jerry Neuheisel continue this incredible turnaround?
Absolutely not. Hoosiers.
Yeah, this is a different kind of challenge than certainly UCLA's had the first couple of weeks. I think Indiana rules.
Yeah, UCLA on the road against the most explosive offense in the country. Give me Indiana by big time. All right, number 8, Ole Miss at number 13, Oklahoma. Can Ole Miss win their first ranked game on the road since 2017?
I'm taking Oklahoma in this game. I think OU's defense too strong for Trinidad Chambliss and the Ole Miss offense.
I think that Oklahoma's defense is going to cause a lot of problems, but I think that Oklahoma has absolutely nothing offensively against a quality SEC defense. Give me Ole Miss to win a low-scoring game.
I mentioned earlier on the show, OU allowed a lot of pass catchers running down the field in some games I've seen earlier this year. Those teams just didn't have quarterbacks who could connect. Ole Miss does. Give me Ole Miss with the win on the road. Number 16, Virginia at North Carolina.
I'm going to take Virginia in this game. I think Virginia playing really good football. I know that they struggled a little bit with a pretty decent Washington State team last week, but I'll take the Cavs here.
Yeah, I think that North Carolina is playing a little more inspired football lately, but there's just not a very good roster, and I think that Virginia is going to be able to put it away.
Yeah, UNC should have won on the road at Cal last week. They had that fumble and the touchback there to take the lead late, but Virginia is going to overwhelm them. They just got more pieces around the place, especially offensively. And I want to hit just real quick on Washington State. Man, heartbreaking couple of weeks. They go to Ole Miss, lose by a single possession, and then go to Virginia where they led most of the game and end up losing primarily because of a safety. Auburn at Arkansas. Freeze warning, freeze watch.
I think I've made my opinion clear on that one in this show. Arkansas, Hogs win.
Yeah, I think that Auburn is trending the wrong direction. I think Arkansas is trending the right direction. They're going to be able to put up some points, and I think ultimately they beat Auburn.
Ward, damn it, Freeze. I think that Arkansas cruises in this one. I'm going to say cruises. I think Arkansas wins by double digits.
Woo! Woo!
That's the stuff. That's the stuff.
Number 11, BYU at Iowa State.
I like Iowa State here. BYU is not finishing this season undefeated. It's nice right now, but Iowa State is not completely out of the Big 12 championship race, not completely out. And I think to stay in, they got to win this game, and they do so.
Give me BYU. I think that BYU definitely won't finish undefeated, though I'm looking more at that Texas Tech game in a couple of weeks. But, Iowa State has just taken a step back on the defensive side the past couple of weeks. I think they're going to struggle at times in this game, and I think that BYU is going to be able to control the game enough.
Iowa State struggles with speed, and that's what kind of buried them last year in the Big 12 championship game. That's what's buried them against teams like Cincinnati earlier this year. But I really like Iowa State in this spot, coming off of the last couple of weeks, having some rested up guys. Give me Iowa State to further muddy up the picture there in the Big 12. Minnesota at Iowa.
I think this Darius Taylor finally got going last week for Minnesota, but I just like Iowa in this spot. I just don't know that Minnesota's going to be able to score enough here.
Yeah, I think that Minnesota's really starting to come along since Darius Taylor came back. I think defensively they figured some things out. I was able to win, but it's going to be a very muddy game.
Yeah, give me Iowa. I think they've got some confidence back in them, especially with the way they performed just a couple of weeks ago at Wisconsin. They scored 17 points in the first quarter. That's like scoring 40 in the first quarter if you're a normal football team. Give me Iowa here. I like them in this spot. Number 15, Mizzou at number 10, Vanderbilt. Boy, this could be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I like Vanderbilt here, to be honest with you. I think Missouri, it's turning up for Missouri schedule-wise. Vanderbilt's a good team, and they're better than Missouri.
One of the biggest games in Vanderbilt history. I think they're going to be juiced up for this game. And I think that the playmaking of Diego Pavia ultimately proves to be the difference. Very well-coached defensive group, and I think that they're just going to be able to make one more play.
I was going through here to remind myself what teams I picked and everything. I'm the only person on CBS Sports that picked Mizzou. I feel bad now. I'm like, what am I missing? But I think Ahmad Hardy gets things going a little bit, and I like Mizzou to come out with a big road win here for Eli Drinkowitz to stay in the playoff hunt. Number 25, Michigan at Michigan State.
Vibes are not very good at Michigan State either. We haven't really talked about it a lot, but the vibes are not good there. Michigan's got the work shirts on, and they are going to go to work in this game.
Man, when he walked out there with the work shirt, I'm like, oh no, I don't know whether he's got this thing, man. I don't know whether he's got this. Yeah, this is a little bit of a mid-off to me, but I think that Michigan State is really, really struggling right now. I give me Michigan.
Yeah, this game can always get feisty off the field, so keep your eyes on that. But I got Michigan winning this one. Number 3, Texas A&M at number 20, LSU, the Bayou at night.
I take A&M. I just don't think LSU is going to be able to move the ball enough in this game. And I think A&M, eventually, those receivers are going to hit a big one, and A&M will win the game.
Yeah, explosive plays are the name of the game in this matchup. I think that Texas A&M has way too many avenues to create them, and LSU does not. Give me Texas A&M.
I'm either going to have a really bad week or a really great week. I was the only person that picked LSU at CBSSports.com. I'm looking at it now. Oh, my gosh.
Hey, I will say this. Since 2017, the home team has won every single one of the past 8 matchups between Texas A&M and LSU.
Yeah, I think LSU bounces back here. A&M defensively gives me some concerns. If LSU can just build an early lead, they got a shot here. But I'm going to go with LSU. I think this is going to be a close game anyway. Okay, let's see. I've lost my place. Houston at number 24, Arizona State. Arizona State down several star players, including superstar receiver Jordan Tyson.
Yeah, Houston. Jordan Tyson was it's jaw-dropping the amount of target share Jordan Tyson has in this passing game versus anybody else. No Jordan Tyson, big problem. Houston wins.
Yeah, I haven't checked the numbers since last week's game, but at least before that game, they only had one wide receiver with 105 yards outside of Jordan Tyson. Their next 2 receivers were a tight end and a running back. But I think that Arizona State's going to just be able to hang tough enough in the trenches to ultimately win a pretty ugly game.
This is a heck of a coach off, in my opinion. Willie Fritz against Kenny Dillingham. I think this is great just on the sidelines from that standpoint. I picked this game before the Jordan Tyson news came out, but because it's at Arizona State, I'm going to stick with my pick and say Arizona State. Cal at Virginia Tech. Got to be kidding me, producer Aaron. You snuck this on here and didn't even put a note on here that you did it. I knew it.
Mid-offs? Oh, my goodness.
JKSs will get it done here against interim coach Virginia Tech. They got away with it last week. Cal got away with it last week with the fumble out of the back of the end zone that North Carolina had to keep Cal in the lead in that game. I do think the Golden Bears can get it done.
Yeah, I think they do too. I don't feel very good about this matchup. I think that Virginia Tech is a terrible football team, so I'm just going to go with Cal. But man, Cal tried really hard to give Bill Belichick his first ACC win.
Yeah, JKS big numbers ends up beating this game, beating Virginia Tech in this one. All right, guys, great show. A lot of stuff, a lot of stakes this weekend, a lot of ranked-on-ranked matchups in the SEC, some coaches on the hot seat trying to stay off of it or maybe get a little bit cooled down. We're going to find out quite a bit about a lot of teams in the playoff race, a lot of teams that are trying to figure out things out with their head coaches and maybe even some of their coordinators. So it's that time of year. Make sure to go CBSSports.com for much more of our coverage. We will be back Sunday at some point. Time to be determined as we kind of take the temperature of those hot seats, as we mentioned, to try to figure out if there's many coaching changes, because otherwise we don't want to do it live in the morning when things might happen later in the afternoon. So stay tuned. We'll let you know when that's going to go live Sunday. Otherwise, we will see you down the road.